Welcome to the Teaching Journeys podcast, hosted by Dave Roberts. Humanity possesses a unique skill, the ability to pass knowledge from one generation to the next. This podcast embraces that ability, offering learning opportunities through conversations with extraordinary guests. Dave aims to leave a positive mark on individuals around the world. So before you dive into today's episode, please share this podcast with your network, including friends, family, and colleagues. And please consider leaving a rating or review. Your support makes all the difference.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Teaching Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Dave Roberts, and today it is my pleasure to have as my guest, Jeff Johnston. Jeff is the founder and CEO of Brighton, a comprehensive mental wellness app that brings together health, wealth, and purpose through evidence-based AI support. His life was forever changed on October 4, 2016, when his oldest son, Seth, died from fentanyl poisoning at age 23. Formerly a successful entrepreneur and financial advisor in Iowa, Jeff stepped away from his career to become a vocal advocate for substance use awareness and mental health. He began speaking in schools, joined the board of a local treatment facility, and launched the Living Undeterred project in 2020 to confront stigma around addiction. That same year, he authored This One's For You and launched the Living Undeterred podcast. In 2021, Jeff lost his wife, Prudence, to alcoholism. Driven to create meaningful change, he completed a 95-day nationwide tour in 2022 and is now building Brighton to help others live with greater resilience and purpose. Jeff, welcome to the Teaching Journeys podcast. It's a pleasure having you on the program today.
I love the continuous learning trajectory of my life. So this is a perfect name for a podcast because it's all about remaining curious, right? It's all about learning. It's all about adding value to other people in your life, and it brings everybody up. And so the Teaching Journey podcast, it's really appropriate for the conversation you and I are going to have today, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And every guest that I have on the podcast, they are the teacher, I'm the student. And that's the same attitude I have with my students at Utica University. I say I can learn as much from you or more from you as you can learn from me. So let's create that collaborative learning environment. So,
Yeah.
and I know based on our pre-chat, there's going to be a lot that you're going to teach our audience. You've had a very interesting and transformative journey, certainly not unconventional in a lot of ways. But then again, conventional wisdom is highly overrated anyway. So, and I think it's whatever works for us is what we need to embrace and what others need to understand.
Well, I'm happy you said interesting and transformative and not tragic and sad journey, because I refuse to believe that what we have endured as a family the last 9 years is anything but tragic. Because to me, tragedy is, your dad getting Alzheimer's, or your child drowning in a pool, or your mom getting hit by a drunk driver. Those are truly tragedies. Well, in our family, what happened to us was very preventable and very predictable outcomes. And that's what frustrates me, because although people feel sorry for me when they hear the story, I don't share it or be vulnerable to get sympathy from people. I'm looking for empathy. I'm looking for people to say, well, Jeff, it's unfortunate what you went through, but how can I help? Not pat me on the back. Good luck. Go see a therapist. Take some SSRIs. No way. I didn't sign up for that. I want love, abundance, empathy, courage, inspiration, people coming together, sharing stories, non-judging, men crying, men hugging, men laughing with other men. That's what I've learned with the last 9 years of my life versus what I was before all this happened. I was a shallow alcoholic, overweight, obsessed with money, obsessed with status, obsessed with wealth, obsessed with my ego. And the last 9 years has just really liberated me from Jeff in a way, as I like to say. I get away from who I thought I was and really start the beginning of my life, really, and remaining curious, and learning, and then teaching others what I've learned, but not in a way where it's arrogance or narcissism, but more of genuinely caring, compassion about people,
Yeah, we can teach, we can instruct with compassion. I can share, this is my journey. This is what helped me during my journey. You don't necessarily have to align with it. I'm not here to try
Mm-hmm.
to convince you that my way is the only way, because there's a lot of different ways to slice bread, and
Yeah.
whatever method is going to work for you is going to work for you. But I throw out what I throw out in the hope that something may resonate, that you may see a part of my journey that could align with yours, and that could expand your perspective and allow you to continue to stay curious about that. I like to think there's a difference, between skeptics and debunkers. And
Yeah.
debunkers will just debunk. They will just disown or disregard anything that does not align with their belief system without researching it.
Mm-hmm.
Skeptics are going to be curious.
Yeah.
Skeptics are going to explore. They're going to research it and say, where does it fit? How does it fit? And they're willing to
Yeah.
do that to find their truth.
Yeah. I'm thinking to myself about like my spirituality journey I've been put on. I'm agnostic. And I think that is what a skeptic is like, I'm willing to accept, the clouds parting and a chariot coming down and God coming in saying, Jeff, blah, 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 blah. I'm willing, I'm open. My heart is open for that. But till that happens, I remain skeptical. Doesn't mean I don't believe. I just need, I can only speak for Jeff. I can't speak for Dave or anybody else. I just need more evidence. I can't go on hearsay. But that doesn't mean everything in my life I don't go on hearsay. I mean, I can't see gravity, but I know what it is. There's things that you accept with faith that you accept are real. But when it comes to like, why this happened in my situation and all the suffering that the blame, I guess, goes with it, or being a victim, because we live in such a culture of a victim mindset. Through this evolution of 9 years of me shedding skin and growing and falling back down and shedding skin, I've learned to realize that there's no like summit to climb. There's no way out of what I went through. I'm here. I'm in the moment. I'm experiencing a difficult, and I'll reframe this, but I'll say opportunity, not challenge, but an opportunity. Anytime something happens to you in your life, if you can reframe it as happening for you and becoming a victor versus a victim, I can't guarantee it's going to make your life better or easier, but it should get you closer to peace and joy in your life, not happiness, because I think happiness is like way oversold and way over promoted. And I have no desire to be happy. I mean, honestly, I achieved happiness with money. I achieved happiness with a big house. I achieved happiness with a sports car. But there was something missing, and I didn't have peace and joy in my life. And so now at almost 60 years old, I am on a quest to getting peace and joy in my life. Yeah. And again, it's just what's come to me through my experiences, and we've talked in our pre-call about some of the things I've remained curious at, because I think of like, we walk through life with this quiver on our back, right? And then you see metaphorically these demons, and a demon could be suffering. It could be jealousy. It could be anger, whatever that demon is for you that, honestly is just a normal human emotion. And you have these arrows where you pull out, and maybe it's exercise. Maybe it's, lifting weights. Maybe it's sobriety. Maybe it's an app, maybe it's journaling. And so I keep thinking maybe it's psychedelics. I keep thinking to myself, I want to fill that quiver up with as many arrows as I can. So the next time I'm face to face with these demons that almost took my life, then I'm equipped to go to battle, metaphorically, and sometimes the battle, if not always the battle, is all internalized. We're not really battling anything external. Most of what we have in regards to demons are just inside of us. And we awaken them by putting negative thoughts, and we poison our relationships with toxic things. And so these demons, again, I use demons, I don't know of another word, but then we kind of give them life. We give them birth, and you become your thoughts ultimately. Mm-hmm. And I played that game. We can share what happened in my life, but it's like, I told myself a story, Dave, for so many years, just feeding these demons inside of me. And finally, through my experiences I had with plant-based medicine, I came to realize that that was a futile fight. I wasn't going to win that fight. There's no fight to win.
No.
I'm not a broken soul. There's nothing to win. I'm just Jeff. I'm experiencing and you're Dave. You're experiencing something I'm not experiencing.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of being alive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Is experiencing, is being able to take in all that is life and do it in a way that, we're open, as you mentioned, curious, and we just look at things non-judgmentally. We just look at it for what it is, and, we make our decisions in terms of what we're going to do with that. And, you mentioned a good point. Our experiences, how we interpret our experiences creates the narrative that we seem to automatically subscribe to. And we have to change that narrative if we're going to break through, if we're going to change our perspective on things. And, and I think, there's a meme on Facebook is that sometimes our own worst enemy lies between our two ears. It's the stuff stuff we tell ourselves.
Yep.
And you mentioned, I know earlier on about the last 9 years, we mentioned in your bio about, losing both your son, Seth, and your wife, Prudence. Take us through those 9 years in terms of those losses. Who were you then and who are you now as a result of what's happened?
Easiest way is to go back to October 4th, 2016. So 6:30 in the morning, and we'll start there. So that particular day, I was 50 years old, married to my lovely wife, Prudence, 21 years, 3 boys, Seth, 23, Ian, 15, Roman, 13. And like every other dad and other parent, I was involved in youth sports, and I was driving my middle son, Ian, to drop him off for a district golf tournament. My son ended up being a very, very good golfer and ended up having a Division I scholarship to play at South Dakota. And he was, the best golfer on the team. And this was what we thought. Our high school had never made state golf before, ever. And we thought this was the year. So there's a lot of pressure on Ian. He was only a sophomore. We were all nervous. And I write about this in my book. I tried to capture the excitement of the moment and then the terror of what happened. And I was taking his clubs out of the car, and my wife's at home getting ready, and I've got a newspaper in one hand and a coffee in the other, and waving to the dad. Like every other moment in our lives when you don't realize how quickly it's going to change. The moments before the car accident, the moment before the doctor says, "Are you sitting down?" And my phone rang, and it's 6:30 in the morning, and I looked and I recognized the number, and I knew the information on the other side was going to be bad. I just didn't know how bad. And so I picked the phone up. I was looking at Ian because he's right next to me, and Seth is dead. And I just, you can imagine hearing those words. And I remember what I didn't do, Dave. I didn't tell Ian I love him. I didn't tell him good luck. I just turned around, didn't say a word to him, got in my car, and thought, how am I going to tell my wife that Seth is dead? So I just basically went into shock. And now in some context here, I'd never missed a golf tournament of Ian's, ever. I've been his coach since he was like 5. We played in 4-hole tournaments when he was a little kid. I mean, never missed a tournament. And this was like the biggest tournament of his life. And I'm driving now thinking about telling Prudence that Seth's dead. And I'm like, it felt like 100 years, and it felt like 100 milliseconds of time. And then Ian went off to the tournament and goes to the first tee, and mom and dad aren't there. And he had to wonder, what was happening. Well, I go home and I walk in the house, and there's Prudence, getting ready, has her Cedar Rapids Prairie black and gold on, and her black and gold stocking hat, because we have golf in the spring here, and it was kind of chilly. I'm sorry, fall. And I couldn't talk. I'm shaking. My hands are shaking. And I just say the same thing that was told me. I said, Seth is dead. And you can't capture those moments. Even in a movie doesn't do justice. The only way is if you ever have to go through them, which I hope, unfortunately too many people do. And we both fell down, hit the ground. And the next thing I kind of remember is driving up to the hotel where they found him, and he'd already been taken away. And irony, it was only 2 miles from where Ian was golfing that day. So as Ian's going to the tee to play golf, I'm at the hotel with my wife and the police with the yellow tape, learning about fentanyl. I guess at that point, we didn't know it was fentanyl. It was an overdose. I apologize. It was an overdose. And I knew probably heroin because that's what most people overdosed on. But we had never heard of fentanyl. No one did. And this was in 2016, and there was only like 40,000 deaths, I think, from overdose that year of mostly fentanyl. You can imagine all the things going through my head. It's like, I got to tell my 2 boys. It was such a horrific experience that so much of it is burned in me, but then so much of it I don't remember. And I remember going into the hotel room, and my wife didn't want to go in, but I wanted to go in and see what my son saw, what our son saw last, like what was his eyes. And his bed was neatly made, and there was a chair sitting by his bed. That's where he was when he put the heroin in his arm. And his belt was wrapped up and tossed on the bed as a tourniquet. And I sat in that chair and just rocked it back and forth and just thought, this is the last thing that my son saw. He took the belt off his arm, tossed it in the bed, and then fentanyl just took his life. And I talk about this in the book, and just how I part of me died right there, but part of me was born. So now fast forward. So the boys come home, Ian and Roman. I had to tell them what happened. But this is a true story. And this really, I would say, was where my advocacy kicked in, was on that day. So I went from being an investment guy. So before all this, I was running a wealth management firm. I had a TV show for 5 years. I had radio for 16. I was a Rotarian. I was a community member. And so this is the first time that I really got knocked down to my knees, like really knocked down hard. I've had lots of failures in my life, but this was like, this was the worst thing ever. And I remember thinking to myself, when the boys came home, I have to tell them. And how I tell them is going to be so important in how they live the rest of their lives. And so I thought of myself, I went back into this old athlete mindset, the coaching mindset, like a halftime speech, like, I'm thinking of the Olympic hockey team that won, in the 80s, and the movie where I think it's Kirk Russell gives that halftime talk, or whatever it was. I'm not a hockey player. They don't have half times, but intermission, let's say. And I'm thinking to myself, I need to say something. It's like, Jeff, this is what I call a dad moment, or a son moment, or a husband moment. You get like 3 in your life. Okay. That's it. These are big opportunities to be that dad that maybe I wasn't for Seth, and be that husband that maybe I wasn't for Prudence, as you're going to find out later. And so I sat him on the couch. I told him the truth. And then real quickly, my middle son, Ian, said, "How'd he die, Dad? Drugs?" And they knew, because they witnessed in 7 years. Seth was in prison. Seth had drunk driving. Seth had breaking and entering. Seth, even though he was a guitarist, an athlete, he wrote lyrics, he had all these other things going on. So they knew, they witnessed the collateral damage that occurs in a family when one person struggles, especially with addiction or mental health. But here's what happened, Dave. I can't explain it. I didn't rehearse it. I didn't want to rehearse. I thought for hours, how am I going to present this to the boys? And I finally kind of went into a shock meditative state and just said, just be yourself. Just do. Don't script. Don't try to say the right thing. Just say, be a dad. Just be dad. They're looking up to me. I'm like a male figure to them. I'm the dad. I'm their hero. It's okay to cry in front of them, but you got to say something impactful. So this is what I said. I stood up. I remember my wife to my right and the boys on the couch. They're 13 and 15. And I said, boys, we have one of 2 roads to go down. We have one road of anger, despair, and hatred, and we'll become alcoholics and addicts ourselves. Or we have a road of inspiration and motivation. And this can be the single greatest moment in our lives to make a difference in the lives of others. I'm on the second road. I ask you to join me. And that 2 roads metaphor became a chapter in my book. It's pretty much my talk. My keynote is living undeterred, better, not bitter. So the better is one road, bitter is the other. And that's what I said. But the reality is that's not what I did. For the next year and a half, my wife and I sat home and got drunker than I ever had in my life. And I'd been a 32-year alcoholic. That's part of the story I didn't tell you. And you listeners are now going to see that the facade I'd built up, the big house, the fast car, and all that. It's not a facade, but it was crumbling. It was the foundation wasn't as strong as I had sold everybody on. My wife and I had been alcoholics for a long time. Seth had struggled. And I had to present this as an opportunity for the boys to take the better road. But ironically, I didn't do that. So for a year and a half, I sat and drank and got up to 196 pounds. And then I looked at my wife one night in Florida, and she walked right by me. And I just thought, oh my God, she's 9 years younger than me. Beautiful. She looked 19 years older than me in a year and a half. And she shrunk down to like 95 pounds. And I went to the bathroom and I had my glass of Cabernet, poured it in the drain. And as it circled the drain, so did my desire to ever drink alcohol again. It just went right down the drain. I don't even know how long it's been, 2017. I've never had one thought about drinking alcohol. And so this is coming from an alcoholic. And there'll be those that will promote the disease theory and say, well, then you really weren't an alcoholic. All I know is I drank for 32 years, 5 to 6 days a week, and I quit cold turkey. So you can tell me I'm not an alcoholic. For me, it was easy to quit, but it didn't help my wife. And then June 29th of 21, a day after my youngest son turned 18, my wife died of alcoholism. Prudence was 46, 88 pounds in a wheelchair. So from 50 to 54 and a half, Dave, I lost half my family. Then my mom died 3 months later.
Wow.
A day after we put our 14-year-old cat down. I was so sick of death. And Christmas vacation, I sat in my closet with a gun to my head, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I still, in my entire lifetime, I'm the most proud thing I've ever done in my life is I didn't pull that trigger. And if I did pull the trigger, then meeting you in the afterlife was a blessing, brother, because if this is heaven, I'll take it, because I don't know how I didn't pull that trigger. I have no idea how I didn't pull that trigger.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, what prevented you from just completing the act?
Do you want me to be really honest with you?
Absolutely.
I had expensive suits behind me hanging up. I swear.
Right,
It's that petty.
Hey, but whatever reason.
I was too lazy to get up. I'm counting down to 10. I've got these suits behind me. I'm thinking my boys are going to have to take these in and clean them. It sounds so stupid. But in the moment of suicidal ideation, anything, I don't care if you see a bird and you go, that bird is beautiful. I want to see more birds. Or you think about, I thought about Brighton, Seth's daughter, who was born 3 weeks after he died. But I made it, man. I'm here. I'm here on your podcast. I'm sharing this story. I don't think I pulled the trigger. Have I had thoughts of suicide since then? Yes, I have. As recent as last year. I don't suppress them and I don't fear them. I just think it's, for me, I can only speak for Jeff Johnston. I think it's going to be part of my story the rest of my life. By the time I'm 80, between 60 and 80, I may have 100 more thoughts of suicide. But isn't the whole goal not the thought? It's the act. I can have the thought. I'm not embarrassed by telling people that. I'm hard on myself. I feel like I let myself, I don't now, but I did feel like I let my son down. I let my wife down. I've given me grace and mercy on this journey. But if those thoughts come, I sit in them. And yeah, go ahead.
No, you're still here.
Right. That's all that matters is I'm here and I love life. I just have, I've had lots of lived experiences like you have. There's something about the gift of suffering. And I read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, which I think probably is the most impactful book I've ever read in my life. And this was after Seth died, before Prudence died, because I was searching for meaning and purpose. I was struggling. And I remember he said something and it changed everything for me. And it was this. He said, suffering will be my opportunity. And if you know the Frankl story, which it sounds like you do, Auschwitz and all that, and how could someone think of being held captive during the Holocaust as an opportunity, but he just convinced himself that this is the only way to get out of my predicament, is to accept it, not the fate, but accept the situation as an opportunity to become better, even in the worst possible situation. So I read that and it resonated with me. And so I reframed it and I came up with this: pain is unavoidable, suffering is a choice. So for me, pain, lost a child. I'm not going to ask you to share anything in your life, but I know you've lost somebody. You live long enough. It's just, even if it was a pet, something you cared about, you lost. And that pain is unavoidable. We're not AI. We're not furniture. We're humans. But the length of time, the duration, the intensity of the suffering, that really is optional. That is a choice.
Yep.
You can choose to linger. You can choose to drink. You can choose whatever. But ultimately, you also have a choice to not do those things.
Yeah. And I think we are better equipped to make the choice when we allow the negative thoughts to come up to surface. That stuff needs to come up. We need to be very upfront with our pain. We need to allow our pain to be present, and we need to learn from it. I mean, I've lost a child. My daughter died over 23 years ago as a result of cancer, 10 months after giving birth to her only child. And there were days, Jeff, that I told God, I said, hey, or the universe said, if you want eternity to start now, I'm ready. Not that I was ever suicidal,
Yeah,
but I just wanted to be where she was. But had I suppressed those thoughts, whenever I just said, hey, eternity can start now, I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking with you, because what gets suppressed doesn't get
Right.
addressed. And
I
what
love
gets,
that. That's good. Yeah.
and it doesn't get addressed. And, you mentioned about happiness. I don't hang around with happy people.
I know.
I like genuine people. I'd like
Yeah.
to sit down with somebody. Let's say if I asked you, Jeff, how's today going? You said to me, Dave, today sucks.
And I would if
You-
it did suck.
If it did suck, I could
Yeah.
sit down and have a conversation with you, because I know I'm not going to get a line of BS. It's
Right.
going to be genuine. I'm going to learn from that. And plus, if we suppress everything that isn't happy, we failed to be in service to our fellow human being,
Right.
because we can reflect our dark sides to each other and learn from that. And if while we are doing is falling into the happiness trap, we're denying a good part of our existence, and we're denying an opportunity to be of service to our fellow human beings. I don't think happiness is the key to fulfillment. I think it's one of the many emotions that leads us to be genuine.
Yeah. I remember early in so like the app's been around 3 years, but my advocacy started 9 years ago. But I remember when I was making that transition from writing the book and talking and raising money for my nonprofit, and I was actually going to start a for-profit, our app. I remember some people that were kind of in my circle saying, Jeff, you have a powerful story, but, be careful about oversharing, because, I cry a lot. Like I think today I've cried 4 times, honestly. I've been on 2 podcasts and I've had some other Zoom meetings where I'm sharing the story constantly, and the feelings are still there, obviously. And I remember someone one time saying, don't cry. He said, don't cry. Like if I'm pitching to an investor, if I'm talking to someone about what I'm doing, my app, don't cry. And man, that just went right through my heart. Like, don't cry. Now, this came from someone who's not married with no kids. And I'm thinking to myself, this is the stigma of why the highest suicide rates in our country are white middle-aged men. Because we're not allowed to cry.
Yep.
Why? Because some investor may not invest in me? Well, tough shit. I don't care anymore. And if I cry and you're going, man, this guy's unstable, this guy shouldn't run a company, well, then don't invest in me. I'll show you the door, because there's someone right behind you. And I'll show them the door, and there's someone. So the team we've built at Brighton, the investors we have, our biggest investor never has even downloaded the app or saw a pitch deck. He said, I'm betting on you, Jeff.
Yeah.
So all I'm doing is telling men older men like you and me that's supposed to be tough guys. You know, I got a tattoo. I'm supposed to be tough. But young men see that. And that's that disconnect between young men today, where they're just so miserable because they have unrealistic expectations. They're not allowed to cry. They're not allowed to fail. They're not allowed to drive a not a $200,000 sports car, you know? And I'm like, I think we need to go back to such basic humanity and not complicate this, even though ironically I have an app with AI and all that stuff. But I think the reality is for most of us, we don't need more labels. We don't need more diagnosis. We don't need the DSM widened. We don't need bipolar 9. We don't need another SSRI to get you off the SSRI that you took to get off the other SSRI. You know, it's like, oh my God, my wife died with 12 prescription bottles. How in hell did she ever have a chance to sit and work through the pain of losing Seth? She was drunk all the time and she was popping pills. She never, and I'm not throwing my wife under the bus. I'm the last one to do that. But there's a lesson to be learned here that I need to share because she can't, and she wouldn't anyway, but she can't, is that horrific things can happen to good people and it's not your fault.
Yeah.
It's nobody's fault. It's what we do now with this horrific thing. And it's taken me a long time to get to this place, Dave, through meditation, through psychedelics, which I'd be happy to share with you. Reading, exercise. I mean, I try to run 4 to 5 miles a day on my elliptical. I can't run on the cement because my knees and my back are shot. I meditate when I can, but if I'm not in the mood, I don't do it. It's like, I know, like I was running today and I got to like 3.5 miles. I didn't feel it, so I stopped.
Yeah.
Because I have a good relationship with exercise. I'm not trying to push myself to train to go run a try. And no, I just want to live to be 100, man. It's not that complicated. And I'm not going to do it by poisoning my mind and my body. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And your body talks. We need to be in tune with our bodies, and we do what our body is intuitively telling us what we can do.
Mm-hmm.
There's two things I want to get to. Two things that you mentioned. One is the Brighton app, how that came about, what the mission is with the Brighton app, and I do want to talk about the role that psychedelics had in your grief journey, because there's been a lot more research that's being done with psychedelics and the therapeutic effects. So I want to really get into those two things. So I'm going to let you start wherever you want to start, either with the Brighton app or
I'll do the app
psychedelics.
first just because I want to spend the least amount of time on that. So I bought this RV after my wife died because I have this wonderful gift called attention deficit disorder. It's a beautiful gift. You couldn't pay me to get rid of it. I love my attention deficit. It creates fodder for people around me, and it gets me to hyper focus on things. Like the story I use, it's like a dog chasing a van and he never thinks of what he's going to do when he catches the van. He just chases it. That's what attention deficit is. I don't know what I'm going to do. I just do. And so I was doing the tour, going around the United States, trying to raise money, which I failed at. I wanted to raise $1 million. I raised like 45,000. So I'm sitting in Little Rock, Arkansas, the end of the 95-day tour in tears. I spent over 300,000 of my own retirement money, raised 45, committed $1 million. I'm sitting at the campfire, literally in tears with my youngest son, Roman. Failed as a dad, failed as a husband, failed as an advocate, failed as an author, failed as a podcast. So I was just like telling myself the stories of just being a colossal failure. And my son goes, "So what's next, Dad?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? What can I fail at next?" That was my answer. What am I going to fail at next? And he said, "No, what do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to help young adults with their mental health. That's what I want to do. I want to go back to when Seth was 17, 18, 19, and I want to figure out." And Roman goes, "Well, you always talk about harm reduction, Dad. Harm reduction's meeting people where they're at. That's the definition." So on my tour, we handed out bags to homeless people in the tent cities, handed out Narcan, handed out fentanyl test strips in the states that it was legal. Believe it or not, some states it's drug paraphernalia, which is just mind-boggling that you can't test your heroin to see if there's fentanyl in it. Because if they think that you're going to use it, and I'm like, well, yeah, would you rather have them know it's going to kill them? Or maybe they use it and quit tomorrow? It's such a naive way that our society treats addicts and people that are struggling. Anyway, So I talked to Roman and he's like, well, Dad, why don't you meet people where they're at? And I go, where they're, I go, I'm on the highway. I drove 20,000 miles. Aren't people outside? Apparently not. They're on their phones. Build an app. Like, I'm 56 at the time. I'm like, I know nothing about technology. I don't even know how to download an app on my phone, you know? And so I did. I took some money I made. I hired a lady off of LinkedIn named Emily, who's my chief of staff. She's my only full-time employee, and she's awesome. She's great, and she lost a family member to addiction or to mental health. And I hired a company to build this app, and started off basically on a napkin. Matter of fact, I found my notes on my Remarkable tab, and like a month ago, I posted on LinkedIn my original notes. And that was the beginning of the app. And the app was basically based on this idea that I was a financial planner for so many years. And so I would invest your money in, say, stocks, bonds, and real estate. That was the results of the plan, right? That was based on your age, your tax bracket, your risk level. I thought, why isn't there a mental health plan, like a financial plan? And if there was, what would be the human asset classes? What would I want to diversify in to become a whole human? And it was health, wealth, and purpose. Those became the 3 asset classes. So the idea was build an app. And then my co-founder came into my life. He was Seth's friend back in high school. And then Carson came in, brought AI to the table. And now here we are. And I named it Brighton after Seth's daughter, who was born 3 weeks later. Okay, so that's a little bit about the app. Let's talk about the psychedelics, because that's the thing that I have to say. If there was one thing somebody said, Jeff, why aren't you dead? I'm going to say plant-based medicine. I'm going to tell you my story, and then people can make their own decision with this. But I made a post on LinkedIn after Prudence died of my family. And it was to this day, I think it's the most active post. I think I had 30,000 impressions or something, which is huge on LinkedIn. And a gentleman by the name of Ron Carson in Omaha, 4 hours away, saw my post and reached out to me. Well, Ron is in the same business as me, and he's 4 hours away. I knew of him. He said he knew of me. He's done very well. He's a billionaire, like a legitimate billionaire. He owns all the Carson Wealth Management offices around the country. And he reached out to me and said, hey, Jeff, I didn't know of your story. I knew of you, but I didn't know your story. I'd like to have you, I want to talk to you. And unbeknownst to me, he's building this massive, community where he's introducing psychedelics in a very clinical way, I would say, but to help people get through things like I went through, veterans, sex abuse, anything that someone's struggling with. I went out to Omaha and went through my first experience at his ranch, the Freedom Healing Ranch, it's called, and went through the protocol of the psilocybin, the ketamine, all that stuff. And Dave, I tell you, my first experience, normally these journeys, these heart protocols, and I never even smoked pot. I've been a drunk my whole life. I was scared of drugs because I thought I knew I'd like them. And it changed my DNA. And my first experience went over 4.5 hours. I think to this day, it's the longest journey anyone's ever had on these, because the meds don't last that long. But I felt free, especially the ketamine. I felt liberated from Jeff, this person I didn't like, this person that talked negative to me. I felt free. And I ran in place for 45 minutes on my first journey. There's a video of me actually running in place with my mask on and listening to my headphones. And I'm crying and I'm laughing. And it's like the dog chasing the van. I don't know what I was running to. I wasn't running from anything. I felt just all this energy, like the universe just pumping me up with love and courage and inspiration. And it was so like prophetic for me that I even have a tattoo here now on my chest of my vision I had of the Buddha, which was just unbelievably impactful to me because my ego completely quieted. And it's never come back to the point to what it was. I still have an ego. You have to have an ego, right? But it's amazing what it did. And then I went back and did another journey, got involved in his community, and I don't take any SSRIs. I see a therapist occasionally, but I wanted to roll up the sleeves, Dave, and I wanted to get to the edge. And I wanted to I remember when I was coming out of my ketamine experience, it was very traumatic. I mean, very traumatic. I was animated, I cried. And I remember the gentleman asking me, "How do you feel? Do you want to go deeper?" And you know what I said to him? There's like 3 people in the room with me because apparently they were worried about me because I'm very animated. I said, "I didn't come here to dance." That's what I said. So they gave me another shot. And again, I went deeper. But I wanted to get to the edge of the abyss. I wanted to get to the edge. And if there is a hell, I wanted to feel the heat. I wanted to get so close to death or so close to God or whatever, my maker, the source, whatever you want to call it, or collective consciousness theory. Like I want to get close to us as humans. And I did. I got right to the edge, and I don't recall like lights. I didn't feel any temperature, but what I felt was absolute love. I felt I felt I it when people go through these experiences, they struggle with trying to articulate it because there aren't words in any dictionary, in any language that can explain the transcendence and the transformation. But I never had any, hierarchy. Like I didn't feel Jesus or God or something above me. You know what I felt? I felt connected to everything. Like I'm in that tree, I'm in you, I'm in this headset, I'm in all your listeners. It's like, and they're in me. And I felt like I remember driving home from Omaha looking at a cow going, I effing love you, cow. It's funny now, but I was stunned like a fish that comes out of water maybe, and you're just stunned. But I was stunned with love and the hate I had, and even the fentanyl. I hated fentanyl. I hated the drug dealer. I hated alcohol. It's like all that just went away. So I can't explain in any scientific reason why this worked on Jeff. I can't explain why it doesn't work on some people. I'm not recommending you go do it, but I do have an appointment. I want to go do ibogaine, which is like the one that has been shown for veterans to be like 87% effective because I have PTSD. And it's not, I didn't go to war. I don't think anyone owns the right to PTSD. Like I think anyone can have PTSD. I mean, by definition, it isn't anything to do with the military, but it seems to get attached to veterans more than anybody else. But I think I have post-traumatic stress. I mean, losing a child and a wife, that's pretty damn traumatic.
Yeah.
But man, there's something in it. I don't know what your experiences are, what your thoughts are. I'd love to learn about what you think about this space, because it's definitely not going to get less.
No. And what seems like a past lifetime ago, I was an addictions counselor, professional, and clinical supervisor. With that being said, with any type of illicit drug or, illegal drug or drugs that are considered to be illegal, there's always some therapeutic benefit. There was research that was done, clinical trials with therapeutic amounts of ketamine and its correlation and what it did to improve mood. Psychedelics. I mean, if you look back in the 60s, you had the Harvard LSD experiments with Timothy Leary and Richard Albert, who became Baba Ram Das.
Yeah.
They were doing this stuff in the 60s and warning individuals that it needs to be a guided experience, much like you had. You had other individuals that were guiding it who had previous experience with.
We had IVs there. We had nurses there. It was all done really, really the only way I would ever do something like that.
Yeah, and that's the only way I would recommend anybody do something like that is under guided circumstances.
Right.
But even Leary said, look, this is not a drug that needs to be given in uncontrolled circumstances for somebody who has hidden really severe mental health or other issues. You do not want to give them psychedelics unsupervised.
Yeah.
And then everybody started tripping. Leary and Albert got fired from Harvard.
Yeah.
And then
the war on drugs took off.
But you want to talk about opportunities.
Yeah.
Richard Albert became Baba Ram Das, who is known as one of the greatest spiritual teachers of our time.
I listen to him every day. I love Ram Dass. Yep.
Yeah. We're all just walking each other home.
Yeah.
And so for me to say that, I am not, just because I was a past addiction counselor, going to say I'm going to take like a hard line, because I know the therapeutic benefit of any type of drug. where I needed what I needed to deal with is when that use became problematic and interfered with somebody's life.
Fair
Then
enough.
we're having a different discussion.
And it can. Anything could be abused. Yep.
Yeah.
I will
And-
say though, and again, I can only go off of my evidence, Dave, but I have never felt, even after my experience, I didn't feel like I wanted to go back real soon. Like it's weird. I had a gambling addiction for 27 years, so I know what addiction's like. I was an alcoholic for 32. I didn't feel after I got back to Iowa the next day or the next day. Matter of fact, I didn't go back for like 6 months or 8 months to do another journey. And it was more because the opportunity came up, not because I really wanted to go. So again, I think most people that have been through these experiences would say the same thing. They don't feel addicted. However, I know one person that is having issues with ketamine right now, and Matthew Perry had obviously had issues with it. He was having it delivered to his house regularly. He was microdosing daily, as far as I recall. I think anything like sugar or, anything could be abused if not. But you're right. I'm not promoting sitting down at your basement with your friends popping mushrooms and laughing about everything and tripping. That's not what this was about.
No.
My situation, Dave, was this. I was running out of options. I was not going to go on SSRIs. I'd literally rather die. I wasn't going to take 3 or 4 pharmaceutical meds after what Purdue Pharmaceutical did with Oxycontin and all that. I wasn't going to do that. I saw too many horror stories on that side. And I wanted to do it the clean way. Like I know I'm putting something in my body, but it's not in there very long. Like I didn't want to do alcohol. I didn't want to do anything like that. And so it just kind of presented itself. And plus I was at a point where I was highly like not wanting to live. Like so for me, it came down to, you better find another resource, Jeff, another arrow in the quiver, because suicide's not a really good choice for you. You have too much to live for. You have 2 boys. You have your dad's still alive. Your brothers are alive. It's like, so if psychedelics can lessen those thoughts, hell, go for it, dude.
Yeah.
So my options I didn't have good options. Drugs, suicide, SSRI suicide, or try plant-based has been used for thousands of years. And every podcast I was listening to, everybody I interviewed on my podcast that had tried it, I couldn't find anybody that said they had really bad.
No.
They had difficult journeys. But hell, I was having a difficult life before my journey.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't do anything, add difficulty in my life, but I got to confront these things head on very quickly. Like it takes you right to the edge. And I needed to get to that place, Dave. I had a lot of like things I had to resolve. And some of the conversations I was having, which I thought were an entity or whatever, were actually probably conversations I was having with Jeff. Yeah, I can't, I wish I could give you some clinical reason why it worked on me, but I'm really curious to try Ibogaine. I really think you say the teaching journeys, like that's, now I'm trying to like add more arrows to the quiver. And,
Well, you're right. PTSD just isn't limited to individuals as in active combat duty. It's just individuals who've been raped, individuals who've
Right.
experienced traumatic loss. You look, Prudence,
Yeah.
Seth,
Yeah.
your 14-year-old dog, and I think you mentioned your mom too.
My
and
mom. Yeah.
all of that in a short period of
Yeah.
time. If that isn't trauma, I don't know what is.
I jokingly say, okay, what's next? Cancer? And everyone's like, don't say that. Don't say that. But I'm like, well, it just seems to me in that 4-year span, might as well just add a car accident or a plane crash but then that's negative mindset, right? And that's how I was talking to myself.
Well, I mean, there's theories that what you verbalize manifests, and if you call that in, so it's it's changing the narrative. So, one thing I just want to backtrack. How do you see AI enhancing addiction and mental health treatment? How do you see that?
Great question. I'll tell you, the biggest thing I see is this. Prior to AI, when my wife died, I found her AA book that she had, and she was in rehab for like 45 days, and it was a journal. She had written and written and written and written, just, hundreds of And I read a lot of it. It was touching, to see what was going through her mind. But when you write it on paper, that's where it dies. Now, the same journal in AI that can pattern recognize, that gets to know you, that can pull previous comments you made and find hypocrisies and find things that worked, the more content you feed it, the smarter it gets. And so I think what AI can do in the recovery community or even the psychedelic space or the addiction community is that for those people that like to journal, which I do, as I put in a dream, because I journal my dreams every morning on the app, on the Brighton app. So I have between 2 and 3 vivid dreams a night. I didn't know I had any before I started writing them down because I forgot them all. But I have a dream. I get up at 2 in the morning. I write down one sentence. I want to go back to bed. So I just real quickly write down in the dark. I scribble. I go back to bed. Then when I wake up, I read that sentence and I remember like most of the dream. It's really weird. I think AI can replace that inability for us to pull those memories up on our own. And I think then what AI can do is structure a plan. So like I tell my AI every day when I enter in my thoughts and my dreams and stuff, come up with my word of the day. Come up with my phrase of the day. So I've got 4 up here from the last 4 days. So I write down Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of every day. Then I start over on Monday. So Monday, my word was steadfast. Tuesday, my word was transcendent presence. Wednesday, my word was synergy. And Thursday, today, my word was gentle momentum. All from my journaling, all from AI. And I also told the AI, I want my phrase and words based on Stoic philosophy, Marcus Aurelius specifically. Okay, there's your answer to your question. This is where I think AI can help those struggling because plus if you're drinking, you don't have a good memory anyway.
No.
I mean, not just during the drinking, but the next day and the next day, you start, literally killing your brain cells. And I think what AI can do is step in, pattern recognize, reward good behavior. So we gamified the app. We give you points and things like that. And use it as an ally versus the way everyone's telling you it's the end of humanity. I'm not willing to accept that. I'm not an AI guy. I don't understand it, but I'm not willing to accept it.
Yep.
I think that AI is going to have, we may get to the point where it could be an existential threat to humanity. It could detonate a nuclear bomb. I mean, it could do things that we don't plan on. But I just don't think that's going to happen. I think humanity's pretty damn resilient. We've been through some really tough times. I mean, I'm not even talking COVID. I'm talking about the Black Plague and the Spanish flu and those things that killed millions of people. The wars, World War II, World War I, Vietnam. We've been through some hard times. It's like, I think every generation thinks that the world's going to come to end during their lifetime. And I think there was a writer one time that called it the apocalypse du jour. And he said, if you're born during this time frame, these things look existential to you. And then if you're born during this time thing, and I just throw AI into our generation as being on that list. And in 100 years, AI won't be on the list. Something else will be on the list. And it just keeps going. But what control do you and I have over that anyway?
We don't.
0.
The only control we have is how we choose to live our life each and every moment of each and every day. That's the only thing we got control over.
Yeah, you're right. And that's old, ancient Stoicism 101.
Mm-hmm.
It's not what happens to you. It's what you do with what happens to you.
Yeah, I know you mentioned your book earlier. This one's for you.
Yeah.
When readers buy it,
Yeah.
prospective readers buy it, what are they going to take away from it?
Okay. Good question. I was very intentional. I did not want to write a sappy, sad story about this guy who lost his family or this addict struggling with alcoholism. I wanted to have you put that book down and run through a wall. I wanted you to put the book down and say, I'm going to start a nonprofit, or I'm going to start a podcast, or I'm going to write a book, or I'm going to pull up my pants, get out of bed, and I'm going to start that thing that I've wanted to do. So I wanted the book to be an inspiration. So that's why it's called This One's For You, an inspirational journey through addiction, death, and meaning. My second book, coming out sometime this year, I'm about halfway through it, is called The Upstream Mind. And it's about the problems in our Western society today about especially healthcare, where it's all predicated on putting out fires, and there's very little emphasis on prevention. So that's what I'm talking about, The Upstream Mind. So back to my first book, I wanted to write it, tell the story about Seth, but it was very important to me, Dave, that when Seth's daughter, Brighton, got old enough to read the book, that she would have a better understanding of who her dad was. That was the real reason I wrote the book. I don't mention Brighton in the book at all until the first sentence. This is for Brighton, Seth and what Prudence and Roman and Ian and stuff. There's going to be a day. She's already asked me about addiction. She's asked me about how her dad died. She's asked me where her mom is. Her mom, we don't know where she is. There's going to be a day where she is going to have a right to know. And no one's in the family is going to tell her the truth. Nobody wants to, except me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not doing it because I'm trying to get her not to do drugs. She's going to have to make that decision on her own. But I want to make sure she knows everything about her dad. She has a right to know that. That's what Seth would have wanted, the good and the bad. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was one of the big, everyone was writing a book. I'm like, is this a story that I think Brighton should know about? Yeah, there's hard stories in there. There's tough. I talk about when he went to prison. I talk about his breaking and entering. I talk about some of the events in our house, in our kitchen. It got hard, but we coddle kids too much, man. We coddle them.
Yep.
And then when things do happen, they crumble and they don't build resiliency. And I think my obligation to Brighton, I want to be a kid for as long as she can, but she's going to be a young adult and then she's going to be a woman and she'll get married and she'll have kids. She has a right to know that her dad didn't just die from fentanyl in some hotel room.
Mm-hmm.
She has a right to know he hit a game-winning shot in 7th grade in basketball when I was coaching. He wrote great lyrics and had a white guitar. She has a right to know he was a good basketball player. That's my obligation as grandpa, isn't to scare her from drugs, scare her from addiction, but to let her know how beautiful her dad was. And when she asked me, we were watching Scooby-Doo one time on a Friday night. I don't know what Scooby-Doo triggered her, but she said, "Grandpa, what's addiction?" I'm like, what part of Scooby-Doo made you think of that? And I said, when I took your tablet away a few hours ago to go to bed and you got a little mad at me? That's addiction. And then she goes, how did my dad die? And I said, Brighton, there's a day and a time and a place where I'm going to go through all this with you. And today's not that day. But just know one thing. There's nobody in the universe that loves you more than your dad. That's all you have to know right now. And so every time I pick her up, every time I see her, I say, where's your dad? Where's Seth? She goes, heart. In my heart? I said, yeah. He's in all of our hearts. And that's where he lives for the rest of your life. And that's the way I want to leave it right now. I don't need to overcomplicate it. She's got enough struggles ahead of her. I want to surround her with as much love as I can, but I don't want to coddle her either.
Yeah, there's a balance with that. And you're finding the balance. And I think it's so important that she knows who her dad is.
Yeah.
And not just the addiction part of it, but who he is.
To be proud of him.
Yes. I mean,
Yeah.
you've mentioned he was a guitarist. He was a songwriter.
He's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
He'd have his tongue hanging out. He'd be playing, AC/DC, and we bought him this white guitar and he was playing in his amps, and then one day it was gone.
Yep.
And he sold it for drugs. And it's like, so, but Brighton needs to know, because if I don't do this, I don't write the book, I don't do the app, who's going to do it?
Yep.
Nobody's going to do it. And then Seth's just going to be this person she sees in pictures, and all she's going to know is how he died.
The other thing is that she'll never know how he lived unless you tell her. And that's the other part of that. And the thing that I tell my students, and I do teach an impact of addiction on children and families. I teach that course once a year. And I tell them, I said, look, you need to treat the behavior and not at the expense of the self-esteem of the individual. These are basically good people that have danced with addiction, but these are some of the most creative, intelligent, passionate, compassionate souls you'll ever meet. And the other thing is what's happening in between. It isn't just about either you're an addict or in your recovery. I've worked with many addicts. I worked with many individuals who had 5, 10 years of sobriety, were doing great
Hmm.
service work, and they relapsed. Does it mean
Yeah.
that we ignore the 5 or 10 years that they did some
Right.
great work? No.
Yeah. Because they beat themselves up.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
and so I always would remind them, look, you did some great stuff here. Let's go back, see what you did well. Let's see what you're missing now, and let's get you back in. Don't let this relapse determine the quality of your recovery or the quality of your life.
A really good friend of mine who I've been to meetings with him, and he's, he battles with his relationship with alcohol much worse than I do. He fell off the wagon the other day. He's been sober, I think, like 8, 9 years. And he called me. I was in the airport and he called me and he said, "Hey, yeah, I fell off the wagon." And I didn't know really what to say. So I didn't say much. I kind of almost downplayed it, Dave. I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, how'd that make you feel?" And he said, and I said, "Well, how'd today go?" And I guess I don't know if this is the right way to do it. Is there a right way, Dave? I don't know. I made up shit all the time they were struggling. That's all you do as a parent or as a husband. You just make up stuff. But I wanted him to know I wasn't going to go, "Oh man, that's too bad. How many years are you sober? God, that sucks. Geez, that's too bad." I just didn't want to do that. I wanted to just like, okay, get over it. Get over it.
Yeah.
You didn't get in a car. You didn't kill somebody. You're here today. Did you drink today? No. Okay, that's all I care about. That's why I don't keep score. I know what day I quit. I have no idea how many days that is. I could care less. And if I did drink today, I swear to God, if I drank today, I would give myself grace and mercy, and I would not beat myself up. I wouldn't keep counting again. I wouldn't say, "Oh, I was sober 8 years and I fell off." No, I just decided to drink one day during my sober journey.
Yeah.
Big deal, right? I mean, you didn't die. You're here. You learn from it. You move on. It's only a mistake if you repeat it. And addicts and alcoholics and so many people that struggle beat themselves up so much when they, quote, fall off the wagon. There's no wagon to fall off.
No.
We're setting ourselves up for disaster when we anoint ourselves these titles like sobriety and stuff. It's just, I chose not to drink today, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. I don't know about tomorrow. I have no idea.
But it's just one day at a time. Literally one day at a time.
Literally.
You didn't drink
It's as
today.
simple as that.
Yeah.
And
It's
if you
one-
did, like my friend, I don't think any less. I'm actually happy he told me. I'm happy he feels a little shameful. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with guilt and shame.
No.
I mean, it got me to where I'm at, feeling guilty I wasn't a better dad. I built the app. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like these human emotions were given to us or we evolved to have them. I don't know, either one, doesn't matter, for a reason. These are like check engine lights, right?
Yeah.
You just don't go buy a new car. Every time your check engine light comes on, you just go take the lot and buy a new car. No, it's normal. It's perfectly normal to fall off the wagon during your addiction journey. It's
Mhm.
not abnormal at all. It probably happens more than not. I don't know. You probably know the numbers better than me, but I think if someone had a very poor relationship with alcohol and then was sober for a while, I don't know what the percentages are, but I think probably high percentage of people probably stumble a few times.
I mean, sometimes it takes them 3, 4, 5, or maybe more times when they get into treatment or they find
Yeah.
a supportive community before they actually get it. And sometimes some of the best interventions we do as therapists is to prepare that individual for the next treatment entry.
Yeah.
Like meet them where they're at.
Yep.
Do some consequential thinking. Do some,
I like that.
like if you take this path where you're drinking, what do you think the consequences are going to be, and vice versa? It's basically empowering them to make a decision that we may not agree with, but it's going to be on their own terms. And then when they realize that, hey, maybe my decision didn't really go as well as I planned, they're going to come back into treatment more ready the next time. And it's just, these are things I learned, I think, through experience over the years. I don't give advice anymore.
Yeah.
I make suggestions, because if I give
Yeah.
you advice and you did well, it was my advice that made you do well.
Yeah.
If you screwed it up, then you blame me, and then you stay down longer.
Yeah.
And-
I was thinking about a story. I was talking to a group of high school kids, and I thought of this metaphor. I asked them, I said, in baseball, if you bat, 400, you're in the Hall of Fame. If you're a coach in college and you win 70% of your games or 60% of your games. You're going to be a coach of the year. If you're shooting 3-pointers and you're over 50%, you're going to be first team All-State. You have survived 100% of every single worst moment in your life up to this moment.
Mm-hmm.
You're in the Life Hall of Fame, dude.
Yeah.
You're batting 1,000.
Yeah.
Think about that. And that's powerful because every single one of us has had strikeouts. We fumbled the ball at the goal line. We've airballed the free throw. We've whatever metaphor you want to use. But you're here, Dave. I'm here. We're in the Hall of Fame of life right now. And I tell you what, I'm just guessing, but 99% of the people that are dead would trade their lives with our lives in a heartbeat to have whatever pain you're having, to whatever suffer you're having, whatever worst fight you're having with your spouse, or maybe you lost your spouse. They would trade to come back to life, to experience the pain of suffering and loss and jealousy and anger, or be dead. It's like, that's why I think to myself, 99.99% of all humans that have ever lived are dead. I mean, we're so lucky to be here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And, people aren't going to remember your batting average. People aren't going to remember the amount of money you made. They're going to remember the impact you had on them. That's what they're going to remember. And
well said.
And so for me, it's like abundance is, I have enough money to take care of my bills, to live comfortably, but abundance is going to be the impact that I could potentially make on anybody who I believe will, I'm going to be gifted with their presence. Not that they're going to be gifted with mine, but I'm going to be gifted with theirs.
My good friend Omani, who introduced me to this community, and he has a right to say this because he's a billionaire, but he said, Jeff, your goal shouldn't become a billionaire. You want to be a spiritual billionaire. And
Yep.
I kind of hesitated, and I thought, I'm like, well, yeah, I'm 60. I don't think with the time I've left, I'm going to become a billionaire. But I do feel like a spiritual billionaire.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like the psychedelics, death, alcoholism, suicide thoughts has been a portfolio I've been building over the years.
Mm.
And these are my human asset classes now that have made me a spiritual billionaire. Now I want to be a spiritual trillionaire,
Yeah. Hey, the greatest awareness we develop is not from the good things that happen to our life. It's usually the challenges that befall us. It's the stuff that isn't so pretty that leads, I think, the greatest awareness and improvement in our well-being, because, we put ourselves in a position where we're going to confront it and we're going to deal with it and we're going to manage it and, reframe it, for lack of a better term. So, Jeff, I could probably talk to you for another 2 hours.
I told you earlier, I'm going to have my first cigar of the year. It's 70 degrees tonight in Iowa. So it's like, I've been waiting. I only smoke cigars in warm weather. So in Iowa, that's like half the year. I knew we were going to have a really good conversation. Really appreciate the vibrations and the frequency that you're putting out into the universe by your podcast. And even when I first met you, you provided a safe space. Sometimes I'm on these shows and they kind of struggle flowing. That was a fast hour and 15 minutes. And I just, from the bottom of my heart, top of my heart, I really honored that we connected, and anything I can do to help with your journey, I'm all in.
I appreciate that. And before I do let you go, I want to give you the opportunity to promote yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
Tell our audience how individuals can get in touch with you, find out more about Brighton, purchase your. I also, we didn't get a chance to talk about your podcast today, but if they want to follow your Living Undeterred podcast, what's the best way for them to do all of that, Jeff?
So my book, you can buy on Amazon. I also voiced over it myself. So I would suggest going to Audible and listening it, because it's a lot more passion filled that way. But it's called This One's for You, an inspirational journey through addiction, death, and meaning. Okay. My email is Jeff@Brighton app. And Brighton is spelled not like her name. It's BRIGHTN. We took the O out. So my email is jeff@brightonapp.com. jeff@BRIGHTNAPP.com. I'm on LinkedIn under Jeff. I think it's Jeffrey Johnston. and then under Brighton. So I have 2 LinkedIn profiles. On Facebook, I have Living Undeterred, Jeff, and Brighton. We have Instagram. Our app is available in the App Store. It's just Brighton Wellness, and it's like $6.95 a month. It's very affordable. We also now are getting into businesses, and so they're going to offer them for their employee benefits, and also schools as well. So, I mean, anybody who wants to try the app, again, it's AI friendly, the journaling, mood tracking. We have like 800 videos on the app, all geared towards health, wealth, and purpose. If you can't reach me, you're not trying hard enough, because I'm everywhere out there. I mean, I give you my cell phone, 319-899-3400. I love these conversations. I never want a family to ever get the call that we got twice. The minute I stop talking about Seth and Prudence, they really die. So for me, there's many reasons why I do this. And I'll end it with the quote that I use that is kind of my marching orders. Purpose becomes passion when it gets personal. So that is like the most important sentence or phrase that describes what I do. Purpose becomes passion when it gets personal. So make it personal. It becomes a passion, and then you'll find your purpose.
Well said, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I believe we're probably going to have some future conversations.
I would be honored to come back and give you updates on things, because things are going so fast and so beautiful that I just feel grateful to still be here and have this opportunity to give people hope,
It's going to sound like some updates are going to be in order. So I look forward to having that conversation. So with that, Jeff, thank you so much for spending time with me today. I truly enjoyed our conversation. And I just wish you well and enjoy that first cigar.
Back at you, brother.
You got it. You got it. With that, that's a wrap on another episode of the Teaching Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Dave Roberts, wishing you peace.